I watched my husband walking through a Christmas market, fingers laced with another woman's, while two little kids ran ahead yelling, "Dad, hurry up!" And the worst part? He'd told them I was dead. Before we get into this, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe, because you honestly never know who might need to hear a story like this today. My name is Helen, I'm 38 years old, and this is the story of how I found out my husband had a secret second family just 20 minutes away from our house, and how losing everything I thought I wanted showed me a different kind of motherhood I never expected to find. I grew up in a pretty ordinary neighborhood in Madison, Wisconsin. Nothing dramatic. My parents were school teachers, my siblings moved away, and by the time I was in my late 20s, I'd already decided I wanted something simple but stable: a partner, a home, and eventually children. When I met Mark, he felt like the answer to that quiet wish. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room, no grand gestures, but he listened. He remembered tiny details, like how I liked my coffee and which songs made me tear up on long car rides. He had this way of placing his hand on the small of my back when we walked together that made me feel chosen, safe. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue. He'd just started a new job in regional sales for a software company, and I was working as a school counselor at a middle school on the east side. A storm rolled in and everyone else ran inside, but we ended up stuck at the same picnic table under this flimsy plastic canopy that kept collapsing in the middle. He laughed and said, "Guess we're on lifeboat duty." And somehow we talked for an hour and a half in the rain. At the end of the night, he used the cheesiest line possible: "I should probably get your number, just in case it rains again." I rolled my eyes, but I gave it to him anyway. That first summer was full of late-night drives with the windows down, cheap ice cream by the lake, texting each other during work, and pretending we were still professional adults. He met my parents, I met his. He told me about how his father left when he was 12, and how he always swore he'd do better if he ever had kids of his own. One night, we were watching some silly movie with a big, chaotic family, and I joked about wanting at least 3 kids and a dog. He didn't laugh it off. He just nodded and said, "I'd like that. I'd like to give them the childhood I didn't have." That sentence lodged in my heart. We dated for 6 years. Mark liked to take his time with everything. He said he wanted to be sure we were both ready, and honestly, I appreciated that. When he finally proposed on the shore of Lake Mendota at sunset with a modest but thoughtful ring, it felt like the world was aligning exactly the way it was supposed to. Our wedding was small but beautiful, in a renovated barn just outside of town, fairy lights strung across old beams. I walked down the aisle thinking, this is the man I'll grow old with. This is the man who will hold our child in his arms someday. For the first couple of years, married life was good. Not movie-level passionate, but steady. We fought about dishes and whose family we'd visit for Thanksgiving, then made up. At night, when he tucked himself around me like a human shield from the world, I believed we were on the same team. Eventually, the question of children moved from the background to the front of my mind. I was 32. Babies were suddenly everywhere, at the grocery store, in strollers at the park, in my friends' social media posts. My best friend, Leah, had just had her second child. Watching her rock that tiny, squirming baby in her arms made my chest ache with this strange mix of joy and longing. One morning, over pancakes, I said, "So, what do you think about starting to try? Officially?" Mark's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He smiled, but there was a flicker of hesitation behind his eyes. "Yeah," he said slowly. "Yeah, that could be good. I'm just under a lot of pressure at work right now. Maybe give it a couple of months?" I told myself he was just stressed. A few months later, I brought it up again. This time, he nodded quickly. "Let's do it," he said. "No more overthinking." So we tried. The first month, I was full of excitement. I bought ovulation tests, tracked temperatures, Googled way too much. By the 6th month, I was anxious. People kept saying, "Relax, it'll happen when you stop stressing about it," which is possibly the most useless advice you can give someone desperate to conceive. After a year, my doctor suggested fertility testing. I remember sitting in that waiting room, surrounded by couples pretending they weren't terrified. Mark had come straight from work, tie loosened, hair ruffled. He sat close, but oddly quiet. The tests took time: blood work, scans, awkward conversations. At one appointment, the doctor wanted to test Mark as well. He laughed and said, "Sure, poke me, prod me, whatever you need," then glanced at me like we were sharing some private joke. Weeks later, we sat in the doctor's office again. She had a folder open in front of her, glasses low on her nose. Her tone was gentle in that rehearsed, clinical way that lets you know you're about to hear something bad. "Helen," she said, "we've reviewed your results thoroughly. Unfortunately, it appears that conceiving naturally will be extremely difficult for you. Very unlikely. There are treatments we can discuss, but even with those, the chances aren't high." It felt like the air condensed and turned to stone in my lungs. I nodded, because that's what you do when doctors talk. You nod and pretend you're absorbing the information instead of watching your dreams crumble. Beside me, Mark's hand tightened around mine. I didn't look at him until we got back to the car. That's when everything broke. I closed the door and suddenly couldn't breathe. The sob tore out of me before I knew it was coming. I bent forward, hands pressed to my face, gasping and crying, and making these raw, ugly sounds I didn't know lived in my body. Mark unbuckled his seatbelt and wrapped his arms around me. I collapsed against him, clutching his shirt like a lifeline. "I'm sorry," I kept repeating. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He stroked my hair, murmuring, it's okay," until the storm of sobs turned into quiet, hiccuping breaths. Then he took my face in his hands and said the words that would echo in my mind for years. "I don't need kids, Helen. I just need you. I love you. You are enough." I believed him. I wanted to believe him more than anything. We talked about adoption, briefly. He said he wasn't sure. He'd see things like, "I don't know if I could love someone else's child the same way," and "I just want you. I don't care about passing on my genes." I hated myself a little for feeling relief when he said that. It made me feel like maybe I hadn't ruined his life. Over time, the topic of children stopped being something we talked about out loud. It became this quiet ache that lived between us. We found other things to focus on: our jobs, vacations, home projects. We bought new appliances, new distractions. But the holidays always made it worse. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, all of them reminded me of something missing. And every year, especially around Christmas, Mark started traveling more for work. Overnight trips, big client in Milwaukee, emergency meeting in Milwaukee, regional sales conference in Chicago. He'd bring back receipts for dinners with colleagues and hotel soaps. I'd listen, smile, and tell myself some jobs were just demanding like that. What I didn't realize was that I was only living in half of my husband's life. The rest of him was somewhere else entirely. The day everything changed started out beautifully ordinary. It was December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. Madison was in full holiday mode. Snow on the sidewalks, warm shop windows, people lugging bags through the cold air. Mark had left early that morning. kissing my forehead in the half-darkness and telling me he had to drive to Milwaukee for an urgent client meeting. That afternoon, I went to the Tenny Park Christmas market to pick up some last-minute gifts. I wrapped my coat tighter, cupped my hands around a steaming cup of spiced cider, and told myself that even if I never had children, maybe I could still enjoy things like this. Maybe I could be the fun aunt, the doting friend, the woman who always showed up for other people's kids. I was mid-sip when I saw him. At first, my brain tried to protect me. It told me I was mistaken. The man's back was to me, same dark brown coat, same slightly hunched shoulders. Then he turned to say something and laughed. I knew that laugh. He wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him, cream-colored coat, arm hooked through his. On his other side, a boy around 10 darted ahead, pointing at a stall. "Dad, look at this one," the boy shouted. That word hit like a punch. "Dad?" A smaller voice chimed in, high and excited. "Daddy, can we get kettle corn after? Please?" A little girl tugged at his coat with mittened hands. She had his deep brown eyes and the woman's nose. Her hair spilled from under her hat, ribbons swinging against her back. I stopped walking. Mark reached down and ruffled the boy's hair with one hand, while the other squeezed the woman's arm. He leaned down to say something to the little girl, and she giggled, clutching his arm tighter. They looked like a family, not a fling, a practiced, lived-in family. I ducked behind the nearest stall, my back pressed against a display of hand-painted ornaments. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my gums. I peeked around just enough to watch them walk past. The boy bounced as they approached a toy stall. The girl pointed at a carved horse. The woman laughed when Mark exaggeratedly pretended to be shocked by the prices. His hand skimmed the small of her back as they moved on. That used to be my place. I didn't confront him. I always assumed I'd cause a scene if I ever caught someone cheating. Instead, I just watched, frozen. Something in me knew this wasn't a single betrayal. The kids called him Dad without hesitation. The woman looked at him like he was her person, not a secret. Eventually, they turned a corner and disappeared. The spell broke. I walked back to my car on autopilot, got in, and sat there in the cold, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes looked older, like I'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. On the drive home, my mind spun. Cheating? Obviously. But this was more. Who were those kids? How long had this been going on? Did they know about me? Did she? At home, I stared at the house we'd chosen together. The wreath on the door, the warm glow from the living room, the doormat that said, "Welcome home." Home. Inside, I hung up my coat and sat on the couch in the dark. I didn't call him. I didn't scream. Instead, a strange, sharp clarity settled over me. I needed information, not his version, the real version. The first place I checked was his car. I'd never been the snooping type, but that evening, the world I thought I lived in had cracked open. I needed to see what was underneath. The interior smelled like fast food and his cologne. In the door pocket, I found a tiny navy mitten with a snowflake pattern and dried mud at the fingertips. Next to it was a broken crayon. In the center console, under some receipts, was a folded piece of construction paper. Inside was a crayon drawing, a tall brown figure labeled Daddy, a smaller figure in pink, another in blue, all holding hands under a yellow sun. At the top, in wobbly letters, me and Daddy and Nate. In the glove compartment, beside the car manual, was another card covered in stickers and glitter glue. "Happy birthday, Daddy," it read in purple marker. "Love, Lily." Lily, a 7-year-old girl whose father was also my husband. That night, when Mark came home, he smelled like cold air and faint smoke from market food. He kissed my forehead and said, "The meeting went long. You should have seen the traffic." The lie was so casual, it scared me. "How was your day?" he asked, shrugging off his coat. "Fine. Quiet," I said. We ate dinner. We watched a show. We went to bed. I didn't sleep much. Over the next week, I lived two lives. In one, I went to work, listened to 8th graders talk about their crushes and anxieties, filled out paperwork, smiled at coworkers. In the other, I combed through every corner of my shared life with Mark, looking for the seams he'd hidden. I checked our joint bank statements. Nothing screamed secret family at first. Groceries, gas, utilities. Then I noticed a series of payments to a small grocery store in a suburb I'd never visited, frequent and consistent. Children's clothing stores I'd never shopped at, a toy store, an online school supply site. On his credit card, restaurants I'd never eaten at, all in the same area, a dentist's office that wasn't ours, then one line that made my skin prickle. Madison Lakes Pediatric Orthodontics. We didn't have kids with crooked teeth. I copied down the address. I checked the car's GPS history. It showed frequent routes to the same neighborhood. While he was at work one day, I drove there. The houses were modest but tidy, small yards with toys on the grass. I didn't know which house was theirs. Honestly, I didn't want to know yet. I just drove past slowly, feeling like an intruder in an alternate universe. On the way home, a text from him popped up. "How's your day, babe?" "Fine. You?" I typed back, wiping away angry tears. "Busy. Can't wait to be home later," he replied. Home. The call that finally blew everything open came a week later, on a Tuesday night. Mark was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Then again, unknown number. I didn't touch it. A minute later, my own phone rang. Same number. "Hello?" I answered. There was a small pause. Then a young voice, shaky and soft. Hi, is this Helen?" My heart stumbled. "Yes," I said slowly. "Who is this?" "My name's Nathan," the boy said. I found your number in Dad's car." "Dad?" Air left my chest. I gripped the edge of the nightstand. "Hi, Nathan," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Are you okay?" He sniffled. Are you Dad's sister?" he asked, hope and confusion tangled together. I closed my eyes. "No," I said gently. "I'm not his sister." Silence stretched. "Then who are you?" he whispered. "I'm his wife," I said. The silence shattered into quiet sobs. He said his wife died," Nathan choked. "He told us you died in a car accident a long time ago. He said we should pray for you sometimes because you're in heaven now. He told us he was sad every Christmas because he missed you." I sank onto the edge of the bed. "I'm not dead, Nathan," I said softly. "I'm very much alive." He cried harder now, guilt and betrayal mixing in his 10-year-old chest. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to know if you were real. I saw your number on a bill, and I just wanted to know." "Hey," I murmured, "you have nothing to be sorry for. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? Not any of it." He sniffled and managed a shaky okay. He told me they lived not far away, that he had a little sister named Lily, that their mom's name was Vanessa. He told me Mark sometimes stared out the window and looked sad, and when he asked why, Mark said, "I'm just thinking about your first mom." Your first mom? Me, the ghost he'd turned me into. When I hung up, I sat in the dim light next to Mark's buzzing phone, feeling like I was floating outside my own body. When Mark stepped out of the shower, he saw my face and froze. "Hey," he said slowly. "You okay?" "I'm tired. Long day," I heard myself say. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, me too." He climbed into bed and fell asleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours. It was Vanessa who called me next. She introduced herself quietly. She said Nathan had confessed what he'd done, and she realized she needed to know the truth too. She'd had this nagging feeling that something was off, that parts of Mark's story didn't add up. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near Lake Monona on a gray Saturday. I got there early and sat by the window, hands wrapped around a mug I barely sipped from. When she walked in, I recognized her instantly, even without the winter hat. Her hair was in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted and kind at the same time. "Helen?" she asked. I nodded. "Vanessa?" We sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she exhaled sharply. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Why are you apologizing?" I asked. "You didn't marry me and promise me a life. You didn't stand in front of my family. You didn't tell me I was enough." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear, I didn't know he was still married. He told me he was divorced. Then he said you died. I know how insane that sounds, but he had details. He talked about your favorite song. He said you loved Christmas markets. He said you had this little laugh when you got cold and tried to hide it. He knew too much. I didn't think anyone would lie about something like that." Hearing my own quirks described through her made me feel like a character in someone else's story. I slid a wedding photo across the table. Mark and me, younger, confetti in our hair. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. She stared for a long time, then handed it back, tears spilling over. "How long?" I asked quietly. "How long have you two been together?" "About 11 years, she said. My heart stuttered. "We met at a restaurant," she continued. "I was waitressing, finishing classes. He said he was newly divorced. Nathan is 10, Lily is 7. He'd been with her for almost our entire marriage." I told her my version, how we'd met, the infertility diagnosis, how he'd said he didn't need kids. Her eyes widened. "He told me he always wanted a big family," she said. "He said his first marriage ended because his wife didn't want children. He made it sound like he was heartbroken because he'd been denied the chance to be a father." "He blamed me," I said softly. "He made my body into the villain in his story." We sat there, two strangers bound by the same man's lies. "I don't want to fight you," Vanessa said at last. "I just don't know what to do. The kids love him. He's their dad. But he lied to me. He lied to them. He lied to you. I don't know who he is anymore." "I don't know either," I said. "But they deserve the truth. All of us do." We didn't create a detailed revenge plan. We were too raw. But we agreed on one thing. He couldn't keep living two lives. The opportunity came a month later. The kids' school was hosting a family Easter showcase, choir performance, art, egg hunt. Mark was supposed to come. "I'm thinking he's been allowed to keep us in separate corners for long enough," Vanessa said on the phone. "Maybe it's time he runs out of corners." "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." The school gym was full of that particular chaos only elementary events create. Squeaky sneakers, rustling programs, a microphone squealing before settling. I stood near the back with Vanessa, our uneasy alliance wrapped around paper cups of bad coffee. On the risers, kids in pastel shirts and crooked bunny ears shuffled into place. I spotted Nathan. When he saw Vanessa, his shoulders relaxed. When his gaze slid to me, he went still. I gave a small wave. After a second, he returned it. Mark slipped in halfway through the first song, trying to be invisible and failing because he was 6 feet of guilt in a too bright gym. He spotted Vanessa. Then he saw me. His steps faltered. He walked over like a man approaching a live grenade. "Helen," he hissed, "what are you doing here?" "Listening to the kids sing," I said softly. "What about you?" We can't do this here," he muttered. "Not like this." "Here is where your choices brought us," I replied. "You don't get to choose comfortable places anymore." After the performance, families drifted toward tables covered in construction paper art. Nathan and Lily stood by their projects. Lily's face lit up when she saw Vanessa. Then she noticed me, and confusion tugged her smile down. "Who's that?" she asked. My heart thudded. "Hi, Lily," I said gently. "My name is Helen. I'm your dad's wife." The silence that followed felt like the whole gym had been vacuum sealed. Lily's brows knitted. "But Daddy's wife died," she said slowly, turning to Mark. "You told us that. You said your first wife died in a car accident, and she was in heaven." Nathan's eyes snapped to his father's face. Behind the hurt was something sharper now. "Is that true?" he asked quietly. "Did you lie to us?" Mark's mouth opened and closed. Panic flickered through him as all his stories collided. "It's complicated," he managed. "We'll talk about it at home, okay? Not here." Lily's lower lip trembled. "You made us pray for her," she whispered. "You said you missed her. You said you were sad at Christmas because she wasn't with us anymore. But she is. She's right there." Then Nathan asked the question I'll never forget. "Did you lie about heaven too?" he said. Everything in me wanted to shield them, but truth was finally having its say. Vanessa put a hand on each child's shoulder. "We're going to get answers," she told them softly. "All of us. But you are not the ones who did anything wrong. Remember that." The rest of the event passed in a blur. Clay sculptures, wobbly watercolors, polite clapping, buzzing tension. In the parking lot afterward, Nathan lingered beside me. "I'm sorry," he blurted, staring at the asphalt, "for calling you, for making this happen. Everyone's upset now. If I hadn't—" "Hey," I cut in, kneeling a little. "Look at me." He did. "You didn't make anything happen," I said. "All you did was turn on a light in a room that was already full of broken glass. None of this is your fault. You were brave enough to ask for the truth. That's not something to apologize for." He swallowed. "Are you mad at my dad?" "I'm hurt," I admitted, "and sad, and yeah, sometimes I'm angry. But I'm not mad at you, not even a little." He nodded, absorbing that like it weighed more than anything else said that day. "Mark came over that night, smaller than I'd ever seen him." "How long?" I asked before he could launch into explanations. No stories, no context, just how long have you had a second life I didn't know about? He sat on the edge of the couch like it might eject him. "I met Vanessa just after we got engaged," he said. "I told myself it was just a fling. Then she got pregnant. I told myself I could handle it, that I could be everything to everyone." 11 years, I said. He nodded, eyes wet. "I never stopped loving you," he insisted. "I need you to know that. When we found out about the infertility, I panicked. I wanted to be a dad so badly. I couldn't stand the idea of giving that up." So you gave up honesty instead, I said. You made my grief about not having children the cover story for the family you were building somewhere else. I didn't want to be the guy who left his wife because she couldn't have kids, he said miserably. So I tried to split myself. You didn't split yourself, I said softly. You split us, all of us. Some decisions are so obvious, they feel less like choices and more like gravity. I'm filing for divorce, I told him. I can't stay married to someone who turned me into a ghost in his own story. He didn't argue. I'll sign whatever you need, he said. You can keep the house. I know that doesn't fix anything, but it's something. The legal process was efficient. No custody to fight over, just money and property. One day I woke up and he wasn't my husband anymore on any official document. But saying goodbye to a life doesn't happen on paper. It happens in tiny increments. The first time you cook a meal and don't set out 2 plates. The first night you sleep in the middle of the bed. The first time you laugh at something on TV and turn to share it with an empty room. If the story ended there, it would just be another tale of betrayal. But life kept moving, and something unexpected began to grow in the space he left. It started with a text from Vanessa a few weeks later, a picture of Lily holding up a messy painting of a tree. She wanted to show you, the message read. You don't have to respond. I just thought you should see it. I did respond. I told Lily, through her mom, that her tree looked full of magic, like somewhere small animals would hold secret meetings. A few days later, another message, Nathan with a ribbon from a school project. Then it wasn't just pictures, it was small stories. Lily had lost a tooth and written a note to the tooth fairy asking if she could still find them in an apartment if they ever moved. Nathan had started sleeping with the light on again. He didn't like the dark the way he used to. They're struggling, Vanessa admitted. Therapy is helping, but their sense of what's true took a hit. Some days I feel like I'm trying to tape their whole universe back together. One day, she added a question. Would you ever want to meet us at the park? Nathan asked if he could see you again. No pressure. I know it's weird. It was weird. It was also the first invitation I'd gotten in a while that didn't come with pity attached. We met at a small park with a squeaky swing set and a slide that looked older than all of us. Nathan spotted me first and jogged over, pretending he wasn't running. Hi, he said, breath puffing in the cool air. Hi, I replied. He hovered. Is it okay if I hug you? He asked. Yeah, I said, my voice rough. It's okay. He wrapped his arms around me in a quick, fierce squeeze that said more than any apology ever could. Lily approached more slowly, fingers twisted in her jacket hem. Hi, she murmured. Hey, book champion, I said. I saw the picture of your reading award. I'm impressed. A small smile tugged at her mouth. I like stories, she said. Me too, I told her. I think they help us make sense of things when real life gets confusing. We spent the afternoon pushing swings, timing races to the slide, and inventing dramatic backstories for the squirrels darting around the trees. For the first time in a long time, I felt something in my chest that wasn't just heaviness. After that, seeing them became a semi-regular thing. Ice cream trips, helping Nathan with an essay over video call, listening while Lily explained the complex politics of her third-grade friend group. People started making assumptions. At the ice cream shop, the guy behind the counter smiled and said, "What can I get you and your kids today?" No one corrected him. At a school event, a teacher thanked all the parents and guardians and grown-ups and included me in the sweep of her gaze. My throat tightened and then relaxed. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I wasn't trying to be a mother where one already existed, but I was becoming something, a stable adult, a safe person, a kind of family, even if we never found the perfect word for it. Months later, I ran into Mark at the grocery store. He looked tired, a bit older, like someone who had finally taken off a heavy backpack and realized how long he'd been carrying it. We almost pretended not to see each other. Then our carts collided near the cereal aisle. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey," I answered. "Vanessa told me you've been spending time with the kids," he said. They talk about you a lot." "I like them," I said simply. "They're good kids." He nodded, swallowing. I'm I'm glad they have you," he said. "I know I'm not their favorite person right now. Or yours. I'm trying to be better. I'm in therapy. I'm working on the part of me that thought I could lie my way into a happy ending." "I hope it helps," I said. And I meant it. Not for us, for them. The first Christmas after the divorce, I skipped the Tenny Park Market. Instead, I decorated my house quietly, stringing lights around the windows, setting up a small tree with ornaments my students had given me over the years. It was the first time I'd done it just for myself. On Christmas afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a picture from Vanessa, Nathan, and Lily in front of their tree, each holding up a book I'd mailed them. "Say thank you to Aunt Helen," the caption read. I stared at that sentence until the words blurred. Aunt Helen. Not mom, not step anything, but still claimed, still included, still loved. I never carried a child. I never heard a heartbeat from inside my own body. I never watched a pregnancy test turn positive with my own hormones behind it. That grief is real, and it still twinges sometimes, like an old injury when the weather changes. But I learned how big my heart could stretch without breaking. I learned that the absence of a biological link doesn't mean an absence of connection. I learned that sometimes the family you end up with is not the one you planned, but the one that emerges from the rubble of what went wrong. When I think about motherhood now, I don't picture just cribs and baby showers and tiny onesies. I picture homework spread across my kitchen table, Lily asking if dragons could exist in some parallel universe, Nathan texting me a picture of his report card with a simple, "I did it," and expecting me to understand everything those 3 words carry. My name is Helen, and this was my last straw. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.